بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Says باب الصلاة على الدابة في السفر, praying on a riding beast while traveling. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا عبد الله ابن دينار قال عبد الله بن عمر كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على راحلته في السفر حي... كان يصلي على راحلته في السفر حيثما توجهت به. نسبة تعدية. قال كان عبد الله بن عمر يصنع ذلك. Malik informed us that Abdullah ibn Dinar narrated to us that he said, Abdullah ibn Umar said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pray on his mount while traveling, wherever it faced. And Ibn Umar used to do the same thing. So, he used to pray. So the question is this am or is this mujmal? Okay, am is a statement that is all-inclusive. Like eating fish is good for you. That in itself, linguistically, includes all types of fish. Okay? And when I say good for you, that means good for the individual, the generic individual, meaning all people. So that is linguistically all-inclusive. But if I say, I used to eat a lot of fish, is that all-inclusive? Does it include all fish? Or if I said, I used to eat fish, is that all-inclusive? Does it mean I used to eat all fish? No, it does not. So, the universality of a word is dependent on the fact that it is a word and not an action. So when I say Indian people are intelligent, that is a general statement. But you can't have a general action because actions are not generalizable. Even if you did something a million times, it only still happened to a specific list of things. So it's not am. We call it mujmal. This is mujmal. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed certain unknown prayers on his riding mount wherever it turned him. Right? The translation is wherever it turned him. حيثما توجهت به. The birds of ta'diyah meaning توجهت, the animal turned. توجهت به, it made him turn. Wherever it made him turn. حيثما وجهته. Right? وجهت به means وجهته. Okay? So wherever it faced him. Okay? So does the hadith include the fard prayer? The answer is no. Does it include the sunnah prayer? The answer is no. Which prayer does it include? We don't know. We don't know which prayers are included here. Because he used to pray. What kind of prayer? I don't know what kind of prayer he used to pray. So this is what's called mujmal. Mujmal is we don't know what it actually means. We know that includes prayers, ijmalan, but is it fard and sunnah? We don't know. So you cannot apply it to the fard. Can't come along and say, the Prophet ﷺ used to pray, then I'm going to pray. That's wrong. The Prophet ﷺ used to pray certain prayers, and I don't know which prayers they are. Right? So this is a frequent mistake that people do, is they treat an action as if it's am, but it's not. Okay? They generalize something that is not generalizable. So what they're doing is they are assuming what this prayer is, and then they're doing analogy from they're doing qiyas from what it was to what you're doing. So they're saying al-iftirad, on the assumption that it is a fard prayer. The Prophet prayed a fard prayer, and I'm assuming that I can also pray a fard prayer in a vehicle, right? Which is not sound logic, right? It's not sound logic. And I give an example of a great scholar who did that. Ibn Mundhir. Ibn Mundhir is trying to prove that it's permissible to recite Quran in janaba. Okay? And he quotes a hadith in Sahih Muslim, and he says that the Prophet ﷺ كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه, right? Or على كل أحواله, different narrations. The Prophet ﷺ used to make mention of Allah, dhikrullah, in all of his states. So that means standing, sitting, in janaba, in not janaba. Okay? Now, where's the problem? Dhikrullah is lafz. If I say dhikrullahi jayyid, remembering Allah is good, يشمل هذا يشمل قراءة القرآن. This is inclusive of reciting Quran. So when I say reading Quran, making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good, then it is true to say that I also just said that reciting Quran is good because it is included in it. When I say I was walking down the street doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not inclusive of anything in particular because it's mujmal. I was doing a specific remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe with my heart, maybe with my tongue, maybe through salawat, maybe through singing a naat in Urdu, maybe reciting Quran. I was doing dhikr of Allah. It's mujmal, right? Mujmal. It refers to, so it's like saying, قام بنوع مجمل من ذكر الله. He did dhikr of Allah in some particular unknown, unspecified way. Okay, and so say Ibn Ibn Mundhir takes the word dhikrullah, says dhikrullah am, right? It's am, when in reality it's it's not am. Dhikrullah is am, but kana yadhkurullah is not am. Okay, and Ibn Jinni says this as well. Ibn Jinni, the Lughawi, he says this. He says that when you say qama zaydun, right, you're using a word that is generic, qama, but it doesn't mean the same thing when somebody else does something else. So when Zayd stands up and Amr stands up, they're not actually doing the same action. It's not actually the same thing. It's not done in the same way, not done at the same time. It's not the same action. So we use the same word, but in reality, right, he says, وَإِنَّمَا فَعَلَ بَعْضَ الْقِيَامِ. He only did some kind of qiyam, right? He didn't do mutlaq al-qiyam. You cannot do mutlaq al-qiyam. It's not possible, right? You can't do absolute standing. You can do specific types of standing, that's all. So actions are always particular. Statements might be universal, right? So the phrase that you use is al-'am, al-'umum min awarid al-alfaz. The universality of something is something that is peculiar to words, i.e., and not actions. It's peculiar, min awarid. So things that occur to actions, to words, not actions. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so you tell this person who uses this to do istidlal, they say you have a major logical problem, right? And a good example of that is if I say meat is halal, is that true?
Yeah.
Meat is halal. Or all meat is halal?
No.
Not true. It's not true to say meat is halal because not all meat is halal. Okay? But you can say, for example, it is true that Farid Dingle ate meat in America. So can you infer from that that all meat in America is halal? It's not true.
No.
Right?
No.
I did something. I said, in America, so in America, I ate meat. Therefore, in America, meat is halal. That's not true. So like, oh, whoops, there's a logical error there. The Prophet sallallahu. So is it true to say, for example, if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed sunnahs, then right, it's true to say kana yusalli, right? Kana yusalli. If he was praying the fard and the sunnahs, كان يصلي. But it's mujmal, it's not am. Okay? And he says, أخبرنا مالك أخبرني أبو بكر ابن عمر بن الرحمن بن عبد الله بن عمر أن سعيدا أخبره أنه كان مع عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما في سفر فكنت أسير معه وأتحدث معه حتى إذا خشيت أن يطلع الفجر تخلفت فنزلت فأوترت ثم ركبت فلحقته قال ابن عمر أين كنت؟ فقلت يا أبا عبد الرحمن نزلت فأوترت وخشيت أن أصبح قال أليس لك في رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أسوة or إسوة you say both قلت بلى والله قال فإن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يوتر على البعير he used to pray witr on the camel. So now I come along and say see I only made sunnahs. Is that logic yet? So let's read the translation first of all. So Malik informed us from Abu Bakr ibn Umar ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Abdullah ibn Umar, informing that Sa'id told him that he was with Abdullah ibn Umar on a journey. So I was going along with him, speaking with him, until I began to fear the dawn would appear. So I dropped behind and got down and performed the witr. Then I mounted and rejoined. Ibn Umar asked, "Where were you?" I answered, "Oh, Abdurrahman, I got down and performed the witr. I was afraid that morning was coming." He said, "Is there not in the Messenger of Allah a good example, a good model for you?" He said, "Yes, by Allah, by all means." And then he said, then the Prophet the Messenger of Allah used to perform the witr prayer while on a camel. So is it now true to say that this means that the previous hadith meant sunnah only? So the previous hadith is mujmal. It may be in all prayers. It may be fard prayers. It may be prayers when it was raining. It may be prayers when he was tired. It may be prayers of, we don't know what it is. It's mujmal. It could mean specifically sunnahs. It could not mean. Here we know now that it does include the sunnahs. So do we now know that it doesn't include the fard? No. So you cannot use this hadith to qualify the previous hadith. All you now know is that sunnah prayers, through analogy, because you did witr, but sunnah prayers, through analogy, can be prayed in that way. So we say witr is sunnah, and therefore the illah is that it's sunnah, so therefore sunnah prayers were definitely included in the previous hadith. They were, before it was mujmal, and now it's mubayyin, now it's clarified vis-a-vis sunnah prayers. As for fard prayers, I still don't know. I don't know if they're included or not. Okay. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا يحيى بن سعيد الأنصاري قال رأيت أنس بن مالك في سفر يصلي على حماره وهو متوجه إلى غير قبلته يركع ويسجد إيماء برأسه من غير أن يضع وجهه على شيء. Again, يصلي, it doesn't say any particular prayer. It doesn't say sunnah or anything else. It just says يصلي. That's saying Anas. Again, it's not a hadith. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع أن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما لم يصلي مع صلاة الفريضة في السفر التطوع قبلها ولا بعدها إلا من جوف الليل فإنه كان يصلي نازلا على الأرض وعلى بعيره أينما توجه به. So Malik informed us from Nafi' that Ibn Umar did not pray a voluntary prayer with the obligatory prayer when traveling, neither before it nor after it, except in the middle of the night. He prayed tahajjud. When he would pray on the ground or on his camel, which right. So that's from Ibn Umar, right? I.e. the sunnahs were excused and he would pray his tahajjud if he could, and he'd do it on his camel or whichever way it faced. قال محمد لا بأس أن يصلي المسافر على دابته تطوعا إيمانا حيث كان وجهه ويجعل السجود أخفض من الركوع فأما الوتر والمكتوبة فإنها تصليان على الأرض وبذلك جاءت آثار. Okay? So he said, Imam Muhammad says, witr and the faridah have to be prayed on um, on the ground. قال محمد أخبرنا أبو حنيفة عن حسين قال كان ابن عمر يصلي التطوع على راحلة أينما توجهت به فإذا كانت فريضة to أو الوتر, right, when it existed, when it was, this is كان تامة, نزل فصلى. Muhammad said, Abu Hanifa informed us from Hussein, who said Abdullah ibn Umar used to pray voluntary prayers on his mount, whichever way it faced, but when it was the obligatory prayer, he got down and prayed. قال محمد أخبرنا عمر بن ذر الهمداني عن مجاهد أن ابن عمر كان لا يزيد على المكتوبة في السفر على ركعتين، لا يصلي قبلها ولا بعدها، ويحيي الليل على ظهر البعير أينما كان وجهه، وينزل قبيل الفجر فيوتر بالأرض، فإذا أقام ليلة في منزل أحيا الليل. Right? So he would pray witr on the ground. قال محمد أخبرنا محمد بن أبان بن صلاح عن حماد so this is Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman. Yeah, there's a little hyphen here. Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman. This is the faqih, not the right. So uh, Imam Hanifa had a choice to study with Hamad ibn Salama. He said, no, I'm not going to study with Hamad ibn Salama. I'll study with Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman because he's a faqih. عن مجاهد قال صحبت عبد الله بن عمر من مكة إلى مدينتي فكان يصلي الصلاة كلها على بعيره نحو المدينة ويومئ برأسه إيماء ويجعل السجود أخفض من الركوع إلا المكتوبة والوتر فإنه كان ينزل لها فسألته عن ذلك فقال كان الرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يفعله حيث كان وجهه يومئ رأسه ويجعل السجود أخفض من الركوع. So who said, Mujahid said, I accompanied Abdullah ibn Umar from Mecca to Medina, and he would pray every prayer on his camel facing towards Medina, motioning his head only with his own motion with his head, making his prostration lower than his bowing, except the obligatory prayer and witr. But he would dismount for these two. I asked him about that, and he said the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to do it. Right, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to get down for right, he used to do that. Full stop or colon. Wherever he was facing, he would motion with his head, and he would make his prostration lower than his bowing. قال محمد أخبرنا إسماعيل بن عياش حدثني هشام بن عروة عن أبيه أنه كان يصلي على ظهر راحلة حيث توجهت ولا يضع جبهته ولكن يشير للركوع والسجود برأسه فإذا نزل أو ترى. Muhammad said Ismail ibn Ayash informed us that Hisham ibn Urwa reported him from his father Urwa ibn Zubayr that he used to pray on the back of his mount wherever it faced and would not put his forehead down, but he would indicate bowing and prostrating his head. Then when he dismounted, he performed the witr. قال محمد أخبرنا خالد بن عبد الله بن مغيرة الضبي عن إبراهيم النخعي أن ابن عمر كان so is there actually اتصال here? I don't know. إبراهيم النخعي did he? I'm not sure if he's a student of Ibn Umar, الله أعلم. كان يصلي على راحلة حيث كان وجهه تطوعا ويومئ إيماء ويقرأ السجدة وينزل للمكتوبة والوتر. So with this chain to Ibrahim al-Nakhai, and I mentioned that Ibrahim al-Nakhai is actually a student of, did he narrate from Ibn Umar? I don't know. He used to pray on his mount, whichever way he faced, when it was a voluntary prayer, only indicating with his head, etc. He would recite an ayah during prostration and would indicate the prostration by a movement. And he would dismount for the obligatory prayer and the witr prayer. قال محمد أخبرنا الفضل ابن غزوان عن نافع عن ابن عمر قال كان أينما توجهت به راحلته صلى التطوع فإذا أراد أن يوتر نزل فأوتر. Right? So there's only really one hadith here. Which is this one here. This one here, where it says that he would pray every prayer on his camel facing the direction of Medina, motioning with his head and making his prostration lower than his bowing, except the obligatory prayer. So this is a description of what Ibn Umar would do. but he would dismount for these two. I asked him about it, and he said the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to do it, meaning he used to get down for the fard.
Sheikh, is there a particular reason Imam Muhammad is bringing only narrations of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu?
It must be that he's trying to make a point. He's trying to say it's.
Yeah.
He usually doesn't, right? He must be trying to make a point saying, hey, you quote unquote Ibn Umar, I have Athar Ibn Umar too, right? And here, for example,
Right.
Hisham ibn Urwa from his father, same thing. So he's saying, you are, you have, it's not, even if you claim the legitimacy of Medina, I also have an insight into Medina, and it's different to your insight. Right? So Allahu A'lam. But the point is, the majority of what he quotes are Athar. And this is indicative of the fact that the Hanafis see that the Sahaba, when you say Sunnah for the Hanafis, it means Sahaba and Tabi'een. It means Sahaba as well, right? And that's a major thing, major thing, right? Is that if you ignore the fatwa of the Sahaba, you have a different deen, basically. Okay. And that's why I honestly believe that this is the most important book to read. Besides a book of fiqh, this book specifically, Muwatta of Imam Muhammad, is the most important book to read. Because so the Muwatta Imam Malik, the Muwatta Imam Muhammad, and Kitab al-Athar of Imam Muhammad and Qadi Abu Yusuf. And I'm saying that as a Shafi'i. Right? I think it's the most important books to read. If you want to sit down and read the whole of Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba and Musannaf Abdul Razak, fine. But that's very difficult, right? Yes, you will have a wider view like that, but that's very difficult. But these are books you could actually study. People do study these books, right? And half of it you can just read through it. Particularly if you're a Hanafi, and you're like, yeah, I know that. So you've done, for example, Kifayat al-Mubtadi or something simple, Matan al-Shuja', and then you see this, the structure is very important. So yes, Bulugh al-Maram is good. It's nice, it's useful. Okay. But how fundamental were the fatwa of Ibrahim al-Nakhai versus a hadith in Ibn Khuzaymah or Musnad Abi Ya'la? It's not the same. The effect that these things have had and the way that they've shaped the deen is not the same. Even if theoretically a Sahih hadith in Musnad Abi Ya'la is theoretically more significant, but it isn't actually. What was more significant is what Ibrahim Nakhai said, what Sa'id ibn Musayyib said. These are actually more significant in building the deen, right? And the shaping of the hadith. So it's almost like the hadith are a sharh or the hadith are there to now help us weigh up the fatwa of the Sahaba and Tabi'een and not vice versa. Allahu A'lam. And I'm saying that as
So,
a Shafi who's then looked at Imam Shafi speaking and see how they look at things, right? And so here they are very much looking through the lens of, the Sahaba and Tabi'een, etc. Imam Shafi saying, I don't use this weak hadith, but then I do use it suddenly because the Sahaba and Tabi'een. So I need to know that. I need to know what the key Sahaba and Tabi'een were saying. It's important, right? In order to kind of see the world that Imam Shafi is seeing. And where is he coming from? Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, another question.
yes, sure. So here also one more factor comes into play, right? Like the Hanafis have their own usul for authenticating hadiths. The Shafi'is might not agree with them,
That's
right?
true as well. That's true as well. So that's one of the problems with the six books. It's basically you know, it's a book, books, let's say Bukhari, Muslim, or major hadith that are not there. So that the Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i less so, it's less of a problem, But as I believe, what's his name? One of the late Indian scholars. It could be Tahanawi. If I'm mistaken, it might be Tahanawi. He said, he said everybody has a madhab, right? They're convinced of certain fatwa, right? And so when they write a muhtasar, when they write an abridged selection of hadith, they are going to mention the hadiths that back up their point. And they're not going to mention the points that back up the opponent, right? And um, so it's kind of like there are certain things. It doesn't really represent the Hanafi thing at all. So that's why, again, it's important to see that. So at least so you know where you're coming from, right? So that what I'm saying is, where do you begin? So I'm Imam Shafi'i. I am beginning with the Muwatta. I am beginning with Imam Muhammad, and then I'm coming away. As opposed to I'm not beginning with Ibn Khuzaymah and Musnad Abi Ya'la. That's not where I'm beginning. Oh, there's a Sahih hadith that Sheikh so and so says in Ibn Majah, and that's a proof of the Shafi school. That's not where it began. So what I'm trying to say is, why is it important? It's not that it's that journey through the thought process and how does it fit in? And say, I started here and where am I going? And then you can really understand what somebody is doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, so you're saying like Imam Malik and Imam Muhammad are student teachers of Imam Shafi'i, so that
Imam Shafi'i,
gives us a perspective.
where are we starting? And if you know
Right,
where you're
yeah.
starting, it's almost like saying, for example, you almost have like a gun, okay? You have 2 points of a gun, the end and the butt, the beginning, the back of it. I don't know where these 2 points are. I don't know which direction is pointing. Like, where's the bullet going to go? I need to know. Here is a line. Okay, where's the bullet going to shoot? I need to know beginning and end. But if I don't know the beginning, it's very difficult to see where the end is really going, what is actually happening, right? And so, Allahu A'lam. Not to mention that then basically many of these ahadith are then understood in the light of the Sahaba and Tabi'in, right? And to not just understood as they are. Okay, anyway, so الرجل يصلي فيذكر أن عليه صلاة فائتة. Okay, a man's praying, then remembering that he missed a prayer. So it says أخبرنا مالك حدث نافع عن ابن عمر أنه كان يقول من نسي صلاة من صلاته فلم يذكر إلا وهو مع الإمام فإذا سلم الإمام فليصلي صلاته التي نسي ثم يصلي بعدها صلاة الأخرى. Right, so Malik informed us from Nafi' that Ibn Umar used to say, whoever forgets one of his prayers and does not remember until he is with the Imam, then when the Imam concludes, let him pray his prayer, which he had forgotten, and then pray the later prayer afterwards. قال محمد وهذا نأخذ إلا في خصلة واحدة إذا ذكره وهو في صلاة في آخر وقتها يخاف إن بدأ بالأولى أن يخرج وقت هذه الثانية قبل أن يصليها فليبدأ بهذه الثانية حتى يفرغ منها ثم يصلي الأولى بعد ذلك وهو قول أبو حنيفة وسعيد المسيب. So as we adhere to this, the same thing applies, right? Yes, you have to, tartib is important. You cannot pray a current prayer while having previous prayers to make up, i.e. with conditions. So they say mention, 24 hours of prayers to make up. But otherwise it's excused. Excuse me. So that's that point that he's mentioning. But then he says, actually, there's a fara' that's slightly different. He says, when he remembers it while he is praying a prayer at the end of its time, and if he is that if it were to begin with the earlier prayer, the time of the second one would run out, right? In which case he has to pray that one first, right? Then this is the position of Abu Hanifa and Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab. It says, so in the Shafi school, that's not a condition, right? So we say it's ibadah mustaqillah, there's no connection between these two things.
So in the Shafi'i school, what is you should not pray any prayer unless, how is it?
Say it again.
Like the Hanafis, they say at least six prayers should be qada, then no
No,
problem with the
we say
tartib,
this.
right?
No, no. There's the previous prayer has no repercussion with to the current prayer. No relationship.
Okay.
So
We can pray anytime, any prayer.
yeah. So you have qadas to do, just pray them. Whether you pray the
Okay.
qadas or not has no effect on the current prayer.
Okay.
أخبرنا مالك حدثنا زيد بن أسلم عن رجل من بني الديل يقال له بسر بن محجن عن أبيه أنه كان مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأذن بالصلاة. Right, the الصلاة here is the نائب الفاعل. um, مجرور لفظا مرفوع محلا. فقام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي والرجل في مجلسه فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما منعك أن تصلي مع الناس لست رجلا مسلما قال بلى ولكني قد كنت صليت في أهلي قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا جئت فصلي مع الناس وإن كنت قد صليت. um, so it says Malik informed us from Zayd ibn Aslam to us from a man of Banu Abu Dil, Banu Dil, excuse me, called Busr ibn Mihjan from his father that he was with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the prayer was called and got up while the man sat there where he was. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, "What prevented you from praying with the people? Are you not a Muslim man?" He said, "Yes, but I had already prayed with my family." The Prophet said, "When you come, then pray with the people, even if you have already prayed, i.e., do i'ada, repeat the fard." أخبرنا مالك عن نافع, and so this is in the Shafi'i school. We can whether you prayed in Jama'ah or not, you can keep repeating the fard again and again and again and again with the Jama'ah. أخبرنا مالك عن نافع عن ابن عمر كان يقول من صلى صلاة المغرب أو الصبح ثم أدركهما فلا يعيد لهما غير ما قد صلاها. Right, Malik said that Ibn Umar, that Nafi' said that Ibn Umar said, whoever prays Maghrib or Subh then catches them should not pray them more than he has already prayed for them.
What does this mean?
That's exactly my question. Where is my commentary? كان يقول من صلى صلاة المغرب أو الصبح ثم أدركهما فلا يعيد لها غير ما قد صلاهما. Doesn't make sense to me. Let's look at this. غير ما قد صلاهما. What does it say? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here in the Muwatta, This is Zurqani's commentary on it. Okay. So it says حدثني عن مالك. So this is Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi saying عن مالك عن نافع أن ابن الله عمر كان يقول من صلى المغرب أو الصبح ثم أدركهما مع الإمام فلا يعود لهما. Right. Slightly different version. قال مالك لا أرى بأسا أن يصلي مع الإمام من كان قد صلى في بيته إلا صلاة المغرب فإنه إذا أعادها كانت شفعا. So he said don't do that. Right. Don't do that. So you don't repeat Maghrib with the Jama'ah. Okay, so he says here للنهن صلاة بعد الصبح. So you don't repeat. So if you prayed Fajr, don't repeat Fajr again because you can't pray after Fajr. لأن النافلة لا تكون ولأن النافلة لا تكون وترا. Huh? Oh, I see. I see. Two different reasons. So don't repeat Fajr because you don't pray Sunnahs after Fajr. And don't repeat Asr, don't repeat Dhuhr, don't repeat Maghrib because the second prayer is deemed Sunnah, and Sunnah prayers, the Nafila, is not ever Witr. Does that make sense? So they have two different things. Don't pray after. So yes, repeat the prayer with the Jama'ah. Don't repeat it. Don't repeat Fajr because you don't pray after Fajr, and don't repeat because Sunnah prayers are not prayed like that. وإلى هذا ذهب الأوزاعي والحسن والثوري ولا يرد النهي عن الصلاة بعد العصر لأن ابن عمر كان يحمله على أنه بعد الاصفرار وذهب موسى بن نعمان and he says مر أنها وتر صلاة الليل وزاد أصحابه العشاء بعد الوتر وعلل محمد بن الحسن عدم إعادة المغرب بأن الإعادة he's going to explain it he does mention it Muhammad mentions it. So he says وعلل محمد بن حسن عدم إعادة المغرب بأن الإعادة نافلة ولا تكون النافلة وترا قال أبو عمر ابن عبد البر هذه إلا أحسن من تعليل مالك. Right, so he's saying so Muhammad bin Hassan's way of looking at it is stronger than Imam Malik's way of looking at it.
Which book is this, Sheikh?
This is Zurqani, late Maliki, on the Muwatta of Imam Malik.
Okay.
Okay, so where do we get to? Okay, so we should have read to the end of the chapter anyway. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا very clear is it? عفيف بن عمرو السهمي عن رجل من بني أسد أنه سأل أبا أيوب الأنصاري فقال إني أصلي ثم آتي المسجد فأجد الإمام يصلي أفأصلي معه؟ قال نعم صلي معه من فعل ذلك فله مثل سهم جمع أو سهم جمع. So he said Malik informed us that where is it? Malik informed us from Afif ibn Amr Sahmi, who informed us from a man from Bani Asad that he asked Abu Ayyub al-Ansari saying, I pray uh, and and then come to the mosque and find the Imam praying. Should I pray with him? He answered, yes, pray with him, and whoever does that shall have an army share of the spoils or the equivalent. So it's a good thing to do. لعمومه. So وبهذا ونأخذ بقول ابن عمر أيضا ألا نعيد صلاة المغرب والصبح إلا لأن المغرب وتر فلا ينبغي أن قال محمد يصلي الوتر وتر. It sounds like funny what's missing here. فلا ينبغي أن يقال بأن
I think the Qala Muhammad is,
yeah.
should be in the starting.
Yeah, it's over here. قال محمد الكيفاني فلا ينبغي أن يصلي التطوع ولا صلاة تطوع بعد الصبح وكذلك عصر عندنا وهي بمنزلة المغرب والعشاء وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. So we don't, so for them they only repeat Isha and Dhuhr presumably, because you don't pray after Asr, you don't pray after Fajr, and you don't pray a nafila in 3 rak'ahs apart from witr. باب الرجل تحضره الصلاة والطعام بأيهما يبدأ. Man is faced with the prayer and food, which should he start with? أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع عن ابن عمر أنه كان يقرب إليه الطعام فيسمع قراءة الإمام وهو في بيته فلا يعجل عن طعامه حتى يقضي منه حاجته. Okay, he would, so from Ibn Umar that he would hear this recitation of the Imam whilst in his house, but he wouldn't hasten from his food until he had eaten enough. قال محمد لا نرى بهذا بأس ونحب أن لا نتوخى تلك الساعة. Muhammad said we do not see any harm in that. We prefer not to choose that time for meals. يتوخى. So the Shafis, they say it is حدة الجوع, right? That you shouldn't pray with. So it's not hungry, is that you are really hungry. So you shouldn't pray like that when you're really hungry. Not I could eat, but rather I'm really hungry. Excuse me.
Sure. Tawakha has some special meaning here. The word is being used.
يتوخى يتحرى. That means يتوخى. So I think it's from the word أخ. أخ. You shouldn't try and team up with it. I think that's from the
Okay.
word.
Like, especially intend that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
يتوخى.
If it's coincidental, then fine, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's fine. Yeah. Just like imagine, for example, somebody they want to be excused from going to the group prayer, so they don't go to the bathroom for 5 hours. And they really, really need to go bathroom, and then the adhan comes in, and they don't go to the bathroom, they don't go to the bathroom, they don't go bathroom, and then just so now that they've delayed themselves, they really, really go bathroom, and now at the point when the iqama is going, they need to go to the bathroom. They're excused. But why did you do that? So yeah, you're excused, but why did you do that? Right? That's a bit
Mm.
strange. So now the question is, should I go to the bathroom or should I pray? Go to the bathroom, of course. But why did you do that? Why did you you put yourself in a scenario, right? We have a similar scenario. It's in the Shafi for Jum'ah is excuse from Jum'ah is fear for loss of property. So, for example, your key is stuck in your car. You can't get it out. So if you park the car, your car can be stolen. But what are you going to do? And they're about to start the khutbah right now, and you can't get your key out of the car, so you're stuck. If you leave the car, it will get stolen. Okay, you're excused from going to Jummah. So should you do that? So they gave the example of cooking food. You put the food in the oven such that it will be ready 5 minutes after the khutbah starts. If you left it in the oven, it would burn, and you'd waste money. So is that acceptable? Right? So they say that I can't remember the details now, but from what I recall is that even if you put it in knowing that would happen, you'd still be excused. So it is now the case that you have bread that is half cooked. If you left it like that, if you took it out now, it would be destroyed. It would be ruined. You couldn't eat it. And if you left it in, it would get burnt. So now you're excused. But should you do that? No. I can't remember if you're sinful or not for doing that to begin with. Okay. Okay. Let's just finish this chapter inshallah. So it's باب فضل العصر والصلاة بعد العصر. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني الزهري عن السائب بن يزيد أنه رأى عمر بن الخطاب يضرب أن منكدرة. I see. In translation it says منكدر. I'm not sure. منكدرة. ibn Abdullah في الركعتين بعد العصر. So he saw Umar al-Khattab beat al-Munkadir ibn Abdullah, perhaps his grandson, I'm not sure, for praying 2 rakahs after Asr. Don't do it. Right, so this could be for valid reason. So Sayyidina Umar was a huge, he said the dhara was a big thing for him. Right, blocking the means. So imagine, for example, you missed the 2 rakahs before Asr. In the Shafi school, it's sunnah to pray after Asr. Yeah, but don't do it in public. Why? No, the other people don't know what's going on. It's not a class, right? The people become Muslim all the time, new people are coming all the time, they don't know what's going on. You're confusing them. قال محمد بهذا نأخذ لا صلاة تطوع بعد العصر وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. Right, we adhere to, so Muhammad says we adhere to this. There are no sunnah prayers, voluntary prayers that should be prayed after Asr. This is the verdict of Abu Hanifa, may Allah show mercy on him. أخبرنا مالك أخبرني نافع عن ابن عمر قال الذي يفوته العصر كأنما وتر أهله وأهله وماله وماله. Right? So Malik informed us from Nafi' Ibn Umar that he said, whoever misses Asr, and Ibn Habib in his Gharib, Ibn Habib, early like third generation or second generation Maliki, commentating on this, he said it means missing praying in Hanafi time. So if you get to pray, he's not saying Hanafi, but praying in Hanafi time, that's what it means. Right? If you pray in Hanafi time, it is as if he has suffered a great misfortune in his family and wealth. Right? So is it كأنما وتر هو أهله. Right? أخذ منه أهله. Right? So it's either وتر أهله, he has had his family taken away from him, or his family has been taken away from him, leaving him witr, leaving him alone. Right? So you're witr that you're now by yourself. Right? Is that all your family died, you've lost all your property. So you were traveling in the desert and you were moving from one camp to another. You had your 50 sheep, you had 10 camels, your wife, your children. Bandits came, killed everybody, and took all the camels, and you were sitting there by yourself among dead bodies. Right? You're just there. You have nothing. Nothing. Right? So praying Asr on time is an important thing. Right? May Allah protect us all in the Salat Asr. Salat Asr is always a hard time because of the time of day it is, right? It's always been a hard time for anybody, depending on what nature it is. And so it's particular prayer to pray on time. And Allah forgive us all. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.